The movie begins in an office building where a woman is hurriedly delivering a folder to a man. The woman, Anna, informs the man, Eduardo, about the Valdemar mansion, telling him that he has been directed by the chairman to finish the paperwork regarding the mansion's value for the auction. Because a co-worker of theirs was already assigned to check the Valdemar house, but somehow disappeared, Eduardo concludes that he must have stolen some valuable items inside the antique house and ran away. Due to the necessity of the situation, they have no choice but to call another colleague, Luisa, who is currently taking a break from work. Of course, this angers Luisa because it is outside her work hours. Eduardo replies that she is desperately needed for the job. Luisa then accepts it on the condition that Eduardo will pay her parking tickets, which is of course accepted by the man. Afterward, Luisa informs someone on the phone that she will have to cancel their arrangement due to her sudden work. After that, she falls asleep on the couch. The pamphlet containing the old picture of the Valdemar mansion suddenly flips over, alarming the nearby cat. The following day, Luisa heads to the mansion on her own, where she encounters the caretaker of the house named Santiago, who tells her that he has not been told of a visitor. Still, despite this abrupt visit, Santiago leads her to the mansion. But before they part ways, the caretaker asks Luisa to say goodbye when she leaves because other visitors simply disappear. Keeping the strange advice in mind, Luisa then enters the mansion's grounds and immediately sees the gravesite of a certain Leonor Valdemar. She then enters the mansion. With no lights to illuminate within, Luisa remains in the dark while attempting to check the value of the antique objects scattered throughout the house. It turns out that none of the items have been cataloged yet, causing her to call the first valuer an idiot. When Luisa is checking some vintage things, a woman clad in dark clothes walks in. Luisa does not know this because she's too occupied with her work. Next, she climbs the stairs to the second floor and continues her catalog of the property. At the window, she sees Santiago trimming the mansion's plants. She then notices a locked door behind her, which suddenly opens the moment she looks away. Behind the door is another flight of stairs leading to the mansion's attic. After getting to the attic, she begins to evaluate the overall state of the property and notices a foul smell from the attic room. Then Luisa finds a crack in the wall where, upon entering, she sees a plastic-covered gurney. She rips the plastic cover, which reveals a decaying body underneath it. The grisly sight is too much for Luisa, who quickly turns around, only to see a monstrous silhouette slowly approaching her, forcing her to move to the nearest hiding spot. While she is hiding, Luisa unluckily receives a phone call, enabling the unknown figure to track her. When the figure opens the coffin, Luisa kicks the figure and runs downstairs as fast as possible. She tries to ask Santiago for help, but her scream is unheard. She then runs further downstairs to the kitchen area to gather a weapon to fight the unknown creature. Fortunately, Santiago sees her through the kitchen window and tells her to go to the woodshed. There, Santiago manages to pull her out via a small opening just before the monster can take hold of her. The two then head to a nearby car that is driven by a bald man. Due to her fright, Luisa falls unconscious with Santiago trying to wake her up. The bald driver then reprimands Santiago for letting someone in the mansion. Sometime later, a detective named Nicholas has just arrived in the city. He leaves a message for a man informing him of his arrival. Afterward, a car stops in front of him. The old white-haired passenger, Maximilian, who is Luisa's boss, beckons the newly arrived man inside the car. While driving away, Maximilian informs Nicholas about the disappearance of Luisa 4 days ago in the Valdemar mansion. He then tells him that Luisa must be found and brought back without the police or the press knowing about it. Otherwise, it will attract some bad publicity for the company. Meanwhile, in an undisclosed location, Luisa has just woken up when she hears a strange sound. At this time, the bald driver from earlier, Damaso, enters the room with a tray of food in hand. He apologizes for the strange sound, which is actually a recording. He informs her that she has been unconscious for almost 7 hours. Luisa then notices that Damaso has a wound on his arm, and he tells her it is from getting back her things inside the mansion. Hearing this, she inquires if he has seen the corpse in the attic, to which Damaso replies that he has seen nothing. But Luisa knows that he is just lying to her. Meanwhile, Maximilian drops Nicholas in front of a train station headed to the Valdemar mansion. Nicholas asks the old man for a direct phone line to him so that he can call him every 24 hours. After Nicholas has left the car, Maximilian receives a call from his employee Eduardo, who informs him that Luisa's mother is looking for her daughter. Realizing that Luisa's mother might call the police, Maximilian instructs his employee to find some excuse to comfort her mother. Moreover, Eduardo is instructed that he and Anna will join the search for Luisa tomorrow. Inside the train station, Nicholas boards the train and talks with Dr. Nora from the Valdemar Foundation. Inside the train, Nora tells him about the myth surrounding the mansion. According to her, the former owners of the mansion, the Valdemars, were nice, friendly, and ahead of their time. In a lengthy flashback, it is shown that the husband, Lazaro, worked in the field of photography while the wife, Leonor, owned an orphanage at the mansion. Over time, Lazaro grew bored of taking family photographs and discovered that combining spirits and photography could be profitable. He then turned it into exclusive sessions that attracted rich people. With all the money the couple was accumulating, Lazaro believed that they could finally adopt a child, something which the couple had wanted to do for the longest time. However, one day, Lazaro's trick was found out by a nosy journalist. As such, the devious journalist attempted to blackmail the couple into having half the profit from the exclusive sessions. Lazaro was offended by the journalist's offer and subsequently threw him out of the house. Because of this, Lazaro was arrested 2 days later due to being accused of fraud. As a result, Leonor was left alone to run the orphanage herself. She was convinced by a friend to believe in Lazaro's return, telling her that the townspeople were still on their side. The butler soon came back from the prison and informed Leonor that her husband would be imprisoned after the trial. Also, he had failed to give Lazaro the medicine he needed. Hearing this, Leonor was angry and wanted to confront the superintendent. She boldly went to a gentleman's club where the superintendent ate every lunch. Though she was the only woman there, she bravely questioned the superintendent about the medicine. He explained that this was only a precautionary measure. The superintendent advised her to write to the College of Doctors about her husband's health, which would take weeks to be processed. Still keeping her composure, Leonor decided to leave, but she snapped when she saw the headline of the newspaper, which was discrediting the orphanage. As such, she went into a tirade about the bias of the media and even slapped the journalist that tried to blackmail her husband, leading to her being escorted out of the room. However, a bald man overheard this tirade from the next room and was immediately interested in Lazaro. After learning the location of the prison, the bald man quickly went there to find Lazaro. At first, he was not allowed inside, but the bald man claimed himself as Lazaro's lawyer, granting him entry but for 2 minutes only. Inside the cell, the bald man introduced himself as Aleister Crowley, a great admirer of Lazaro's work. He then offered Lazaro all his help to get him out of prison. Lazaro replied that this is impossible due to the blackmailing journalist, but the bald man still wanted to help him. It took 2 weeks for Aleister to formulate a plan to save Lazaro. The plan involved 3 parts. First, a woman would first seduce the journalist and gain access to his room. Second, she would lock herself inside his room and pretend to be tied. And third, she would blurt out that the journalist was forcing her. Because of this, the journalist was branded as a criminal and promptly arrested. Since there was no one to testify against him, Lazaro finally achieved freedom after 2 long months. The townspeople cheered for him, and Lazaro profusely thanked Aleister. While on the way home inside a carriage, Lazaro learned from the butler that his dear wife was finally pregnant. Entering the mansion's grounds, Lazaro saw his wife playing with the orphans while wearing a blindfold. He took this opportunity to surprise her with his return. However, the joyful reunion was cut short when Leonor suddenly fell ill. That night, a doctor came to check on Leonor and confirmed that she could not have any children anymore due to her sickness. The news devastated the Valdemars, most especially Leonor, who took a long time to fully recover from depression. After her recovery, she was visited by her lady friend while Aleister visited the Valdemar mansion as well. Leonor was unfamiliar with the bald man, but her friend knew him and told her all about Alistair. According to her, Alistair was an Englishman who was banned from numerous countries for practicing black magic. Hearing this, Leonor looked concerned. Meanwhile, Alistair told Lazaro about his intention all along, which was to find a link between the spiritual and worldly planes. Due to Lazaro's infamous photography sessions, Alistair believed that he was the link he was searching for. To convince Lazaro, the bald man told him that this could cure his wife. All he needed to do was perform a forbidden rite during an eclipse that would happen the next Saturday. Lazaro declined at first because he had already made plans with his wife on that day, but Alistair said that the ritual would only take a few hours. The two men walked back to where Leonor and her friend were. When Alistair was about to leave, he carelessly shouted the time and day of the ritual, alarming Leonor. The couple argued because of this, as the husband already promised beforehand that he would be there for her and the orphans. He tried to convince her, but his wife did not want to listen anymore. From then on, Leonor refused to talk to Lazaro. A day before the eclipse, Lazaro received a parcel from Alistair that contained the steps and process of the ritual, which was enough to convince him. The next day, Saturday, the butler woke Lazaro up and he saw the old book. So he asked if Lazaro trusted Alistair, to which he answered that he was starting to believe what the bald man had been saying. Shortly after, Alistair and some other people arrived at the Valdemar mansion. He then introduced his companions as fellow disciples of the occult. That night, while Leonor and the orphans had just arrived at the train station to meet the kids' new parents, the ritual led by Alistair began in the mansion during the eclipse. While the ritual was happening, Lazaro was visibly getting sicker and weaker, ultimately causing him to faint. It was at this point that a portal opened from the ground, with a dark creature coming out of it. The dark creature then possessed one of Alistair's companions, whose face contorted first before finally burning, with the fire immediately spreading through the house. After turning the man into ashes, the dark creature sought for another body to possess. However, for some unknown reason, it instead went out and headed directly to the cemetery. Seeing this as an opportunity to escape, Alistair and his companions left the place, leaving the unconscious Lazaro behind. Before leaving, Alistair informed the butler that Lazaro needed help. The butler, alongside a maid and another man, moved Lazaro's body to a nearby chair when they noticed that he was bleeding profusely. He then sent an urgent message to Leonor via Morse code. On the way running, Alistair was asked about the dark creature. He answered that it was a devourer who would do anything to cross the portal. He then explained that even though the evil spirit needed a living body to possess, it could also possess and fix a dead body as long as there are worms inside them. Eventually, the evil spirit managed to raise a dead person from the grave. The newly raised undead then walked toward the Valdemar mansion. Suddenly, Leonor swiftly passed by Alistair's carriage while riding a horse. She then saw that the house's top floor was getting devoured by a great fire. She immediately rushed to her husband's aid. When she noticed that her husband's liver was inflamed, she asked the butler to urgently give her his medicine. When Leonor injected the medicine into Lazaro's arm, she and the butler heard some screams coming from outside. For this reason, the butler left the couple to check. Downstairs, he saw the undead was feasting upon a person's flesh. The butler tried to run back upstairs, but due to his old age, the undead easily caught up with him and slapped him, causing him to fall down the stairs. Upstairs, Lazaro had just returned to consciousness, immediately apologizing to his lovely wife for what had happened. Leonor then tried to move him, but he was still in great pain. Suddenly, they saw the silhouette of the undead slowly approaching them. Leonor began to shake uncontrollably because the evil creature was talking to her inside her head. After shaking a few more times, Leonor suddenly changed her demeanor. Now, with pale white eyes, she began to speak cryptically. Lazaro tried to attack the undead, only to be choked by it. Seeing her husband was going to be killed, Leonor screamed at it. The undead then dropped the husband to the ground and stared at her. As a response from the earlier scream, the undead screamed at Leonor as well. After that, the undead left. When Leonor returned to her senses, she immediately went to her husband's aid. Lazaro asked about what happened to the undead, and his wife answered that she managed to communicate with it. It was at this point that Lazzaro realized that his wife is actually the link all along. Leonore then told her husband that the undead would never harm him again because she made a deal with the undead not to hurt her husband in exchange for her soul. As a result, the heartbroken Lazzaro was left in the house along with the butler who had actually survived his earlier fall. Afterward, Lazzaro carried Leonore's soulless and lifeless body outside the mansion. According to legend, he tried endlessly to retrieve his wife's soul, but to no avail. Thus, what started out as a beautiful romance had ended in a tragic nightmare. Returning to the present, Nora notices that Nicholas is somehow deeply moved by the story. She then reminds him to focus on the present task, which is to find Luisa. Meanwhile, back in Damaso's place, Luisa wakes up to find that the bloody gurney from the attic is now in her room, causing her to scream helplessly. Downstairs, Damaso hears the screams and points a gun toward the ceiling. He then makes a smile as if he's mocking her. The movie ends in a cliffhanger, simply showing a final shot of the house with Leonore standing in one of the rooms. Watching the movie, I can't help but be invested in the relationship of the Valdemars because it is pure but also tragic. Aside from this, the movie also made me wonder about Luisa's fate in the spiritual realm. But the movie does not answer this question. As it turns out, the reason why it ends abruptly is due to the director's intention of creating a sequel, which is very evident in the way the movie has dropped so many mysteries that's left unanswered. The second movie will show Nicholas, Eduardo, and Anna's rescue of Luisa, as well as a much-needed expansion of the movie's lore regarding forbidden knowledge and monsters.